Hello, I'm Dylan.
And I'm Keon.
And this is Trust Your Doctor, that podcast where our dreams try to kill us. Because this week we watched Amy's Choice.
And by Simon Nye.
Directed by Catherine Morshed.
And aired on May 15th, 2010.
Yeah, this exciting episode based entirely around
the love triangle.
The love triangle. Which has absolutely nothing interesting production-wise about it. Stephen Moffat was like, "Hey Simon, can you write the story about this love triangle?" It's like, "Yeah, I can do that," and then he did, and then that was it.
I mean, there was a little bit about that was interesting. I read they brought Simon Nye on because he was experienced in writing love triangles and stuff like that.
Okay, great.
According to the Shannon Sullivan site, he was experienced in writing interpersonal relationships.
Thrilling.
So that's why they brought him on for this one.
First scene filmed was in the TARDIS. Final scene filmed was also in the TARDIS, funnily enough.
Yeah, so there's the TARDIS stuff in this story, and there's also the stuff in the village, which was actually in a village in Leadsworth. Yeah,
it was location work they did kind of in the middle, and apparently the only thing that was changed from the original script is the kids originally were on a playground, and then they rewrote it so that it was a field trip to a castle, and then they just used like a bombed out, I guess, broken ancient medieval castle to film that scene.
I don't think it was bombed out. I think it was just abandoned.
It looked kind of bombed out. I'm using that as a descriptor, not as a historical explanation.
But the kids weren't even like a big part of this.
No, they're just there to die.
Yeah.
Which sounds really dark when I put it like that, but I mean, it's true. They were literally just there to die, so...
Just there to add to the creepy atmosphere, which this story had going for it. You know, it wasn't all just the love triangle nonsense. It had a lot more going on in concept, but in execution, it was mostly just this love triangle. But I mean, that kind of like brings us right into it, right? Because this starts with this really interesting concept of the Doctor and Amy and Rory not knowing whether they're in a dream or like which is the dream and which is reality.
Actually, it doesn't really start with that.
It starts with them being in the dream and then like
pregnant Amy.
Yeah.
Rory comes running up with his ponytail and he's like, "Oh my God, the baby's coming." She's like, "Nope, false alarm, just kidding." And then the TARDIS materializes and then they kind of just sit on a bench and just make awkward small talk. And the Doctor's like, "So, what are you guys doing now?" And they're like, "We're having a baby.
And we're in this village and it's great. But there's old people staring at us 24/7.
Hear some birds chirping and they pass out. And they wake up in the TARDIS and they're like, "Wow, we all just had the same dream." It takes them a little while to figure out they all had the exact same dream because the Doctor describes it as a nightmare, which really hinders their progress on this.
I mean, the thing is, not really. It doesn't take them that long. It takes them like a couple of minutes. And this episode actually had a lot being packed into it, really.
It had a lot before the title sequence, too. There was like 5 minutes before the titles even show up.
It was almost 6 minutes, actually. So definitely, I think, the longest ever on the show before the intro theme. And this had a lot like being packed into it. Like things are moving quickly, right? They realize they don't dwell on this. It doesn't take them that long to figure out that they all had the same dream. It doesn't take the villain of this that long to even show up, really.
Well, he shows up after the title sequence.
Right, and this is something that could have been dragged out for a long time, I think, but it's not. It's all right here in the beginning.
No, because the main focus of this episode was Amy, and they wanted to
her
get
choice,
right into
and it's
that.
called Amy's Choice.
Yeah, her choice, which it's her choice between the Doctor and Rory. Actually, I read that they renamed this story to Amy's Choice to reference is not the right word, but anyway, to draw parallels to this book called Sophie's Choice, which I went and looked up, and it's apparently about this. It's about this Polish Holocaust survivor who moves to New York. I think it's New York. And she has this guy who she's in love with, but he's super destructive. And they move in next to this writer who's trying to finish a book. And I read the whole plot synopsis. She sleeps with the writer at some point, and then she reveals that like when she was at the Holocaust camp, she had to make a choice. And that's the titular Sophie's Choice, is that she had 2 kids, and she had to choose which of them was going to die and get gassed, and which of them was going to get sent to a child labor camp. And she reveals that she chose her daughter to die and her son to get sent to the labor camp. And then she commits suicide at the end of the book. Spoiler alert. But it's like a 20-year-old book, so statute of limitations is over.
No, I mean, spoiler's still a spoiler no matter what.
Yeah, but
I hope you didn't care.
I haven't read the book, although I was reading the plots, and I was like, man, this actually sounds like an interesting book that I kind of want to read because it sounded interesting to me.
Just read History of Love. It's like, sounds well, actually not that similar. It just deals with the aftermath of this Holocaust survivor.
And yeah, anyway.
Great book.
I assume that in the book, there's like Sophie's choice is also between these two men, and that's part of the reason why they also named this Amy's Choice. I assume they wouldn't name it Amy's Choice because Sophie's Choice is just a choice between whichever kids is going to die and get gassed, and which one is going to get sent to a labor camp.
Well, I assume in the book when she has to make this choice between these two guys, she's reminded of this choice. Like, well, one of these guys is going to die, and the other one's going to be sent to the labor camp of living with me.
That's what I was thinking. But, I haven't read it. I've only read the Wikipedia summary.
Yeah.
Come back in a couple weeks. Maybe I'll have read it. I don't know. We'll see.
Somehow I doubt that.
I mean, I was thinking about reading the author's... The author has another book, which he wrote, called... He wrote another famous book. There was a movie last year or 2 years ago called Birth of a Nation, not related to the weird one not related to the propaganda film.
Not related to that foundational...
movie
that's extremely famous and like...
not related to that one. That's based on a book he wrote about a runaway slave called something, the Ballad of Nat Turner or something like that.
Yeah, I've heard of that, yeah.
Yeah, same author.
I'm saying I agree with the rhetoric behind Birth of the Nation, by the way. Birth of a Nation, but I'm just saying it's a pretty famous movie.
And he also wrote another book, the one that I was actually looking at, which sounded interesting because he apparently went through depression, and he wrote this book called Darkness Visible, which is about his whole descent in depression, and then how he basically planned to kill himself the one day, and then he read a passage from another book, and then from that moment on he basically voluntarily hospitalized himself and recovered. So,
well, that sounds like the least interesting of the three books that you've just described, but still interesting.
And the author's name is...
Might as well mention his name since...
Hang on, I have the Amazon page for Darkness Visible open. William... I think that's pronounced Styron. I'm going to go with Styron, maybe like Byron, but yeah.
Stallone, like Stallone.
Stallone.
I didn't see how it was spelled, so...
Styron.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, they changed the name to mirror this, and that's because Amy's choice in this is between Rory and the Doctor. That's where this whole conversation started.
And really between Rory's sort of world and the Doctor's world. This is something that's hinted at right at the beginning, right? Because the Doctor describes this thing as a nightmare, where Rory's like, no, that was my dream town and my dream life and my dream ponytail.
Yeah, dream ponytail.
Weird mullet thing.
He's got bangs, too.
Yeah, it looks really strange. It's a mullet that he put into a ponytail, I guess.
Boy, Rory really trying to bring it back here. Not succeeding, by the way. Anyway, in the TARDIS, they start to hear the birds again. They're like, what? That's weird. And they wake up back in the village, and the Doctor's like, hang on, this one's gonna get weird. And then we cut to that slightly fourth wall breaking statement that's not explicitly fourth wall breaking, but so you can take it
either way you want.
Yeah.
Any way you want.
And then title sequence. And then it cuts to the Doctor going like, okay, so we have to figure out which one of these is the dream. Because one of these is definitely a dream.
And this guy shows up. His name's the Dream Master. He's like,
Dream Lord.
The Dream Lord, right? And I call him the Dream Master because I thought this was going to be the Master because of the hints they were dropping. Doctor's like, you know me better than anyone.
It's the Valyard. Plot twist, it's the Valyard.
That's one of my notes. I was like, so it's just the Valyard. Although not really, because if I remember correctly, the Valyard was supposed to be a future incarnation of the Doctor, but that never really panned out.
No, but then on the show they explained it as an amalgamation of the darkest side of the Doctor from somewhere between his 12th and 13th, or his first and final incarnation, or whatever the hell.
They put a number on it, I think.
Like 13th and final or something.
Number, yeah.
Yeah, well, Doctor Who was weird in the 80s.
Hey, that was one of the best. That was my favorite Sixth Doctor story.
Which one was that?
The Ultimate Foe.
Right.
Was it? Yeah, it was the Ultimate Foe, I think.
Was mine ever Terror of the Voivoids? Well, I think it's Terror of the Voivoids now.
God, yeah, I love that scene where the Vervoid just accidentally spills tea, or quote unquote accidentally, just dumps tea on the worker. You remember that? And it just doesn't have anything to do with anything. Well, it just does it for comedic effect.
Let's not forget the Sixth Doctor brutally murdering someone in that I don't remember which part of Trial of a Time Lord, but he shoves the dude into the like molten lava, and he's like, "Well, whoops, guess he wasn't careful enough." However it went.
Watch your step there. Or the guy getting saran wrapped to death, also in Terror of the Vervoids.
Like I said, Doctor Who was weird in the 80s.
A lot of creative deaths in the.
I mean, that's just. You
Much
can
better
never
than
bring
just
up the
driving
Sixth
yourself
Doctor.
into a stone wall.
I mean, you can never bring up the Sixth Doctor without mentioning the fact that he tried to just strangle Perry in their first story. But anyway, the Dream Lord is like, yes, so you got to figure out which one is the dream. If you die in the dream, you just wake up in reality. And then he's like, hey, ask me what happens if you die in reality. So Rory's like, what happens if you die in reality? He's like, you die, you idiot.
And I really like the Dream Lord. It almost makes me wish that he wasn't just, a version of the Doctor. Kind of makes me wish he was a recurring villain. Not that you could really do a story like this again.
Never really do anything else with him, I think.
Yeah, so that's the thing. But I thought he was really cool in this. I really liked him. I liked his snarky attitude.
Well, because he's the Doctor. He's even dressed like the Doctor. He's got a bow tie and the jacket, which isn't tweed. The Doctor's is tweed, but
right.
his isn't.
He's sort of a vindictive and mean-spirited version of the Doctor.
Yeah, he's played by Toby Jones. That was the name I was trying to remember last week. Famous British actor who, like I said, was in Captain America. The first two. He was also in Sherlock. He's a good actor, actually. He's a really good actor. I don't know if you noticed this, but I'm going to bring it up now since we were talking about his costume. But the Doctor's costume is different in the two realities. He wears a red variation of the outfit in the TARDIS, and he wears a blue one in the Village.
No, I didn't notice that.
Which I just thought was interesting. Because those are his two main variations of the outfit. We haven't actually talked about the 11th Doctor's outfit a lot, which is interesting because we talked quite a bit about 9 and 10, but he has two main variations at this point on his outfit. One is a kind of a maroon burgundy shirt with like a reddish bow tie, and then one is with a light blue shirt with like a dark blue bow tie. And the jacket and the pants are the same.
Sure. This is also, I think, the first story we get the bow ties are cool line, or maybe the only one. I don't know, but that's become sort of a famous line.
Yeah, it's not the only line, and you better buckle up because, again, a lot of other things that are going to be described as cool, including Fez's this season and Stetson's next season.
Huh. I don't even know what Stetsons are.
Well, when you're a cowboy, it's like a certain type of, like, cowboy-style hat.
Huh. All right. Yeah, so what's sort of weird here, they have to make this choice between these two realities, right? And the Ninth Doctor, and also to an extent, well, not to an extent, yeah, the 10th Doctor as well, they both had this thing of like normal people living normal lives. That's something so amazing, and it's something I could never do. Whereas the 11th Doctor seems to have taken a sort of different turn here. He's like, yeah, it's kind of lame. Rory, your ideal life is not one. Yeah, lame, basically. And
but then Rory's like, your life is lame.
But here's the thing. I decided to make my own choice at the beginning of this episode and see where it all went as to which one of these was the actual reality.
I bet
and
you
that was
see the resolution coming.
No, I didn't. But I was like, oh, it's for sure the village life is fake, right? That's just Rory's dream or whatever. And it is, but there's more to it.
Well, it's because the Dream Lord constructed, it's getting a little ahead of ourselves, but constructed the perfect reality for both of the two choices.
Right. So you have Rory's world, which is the village, and the Doctor's world, which is the TARDIS.
Yeah, well, so the TARDIS...
I thought what it was going to be was like the village was both the Doctor and Rory's like ideals. Rory just living this quiet, boring life, and the Doctor like fighting off these aliens in England.
Great. The Doctor's dream is just to always fight aliens in England. He must have been loving the 70s. So the TARDIS shuts down and it starts plummeting into a cold star. And Amy's like, this is obviously the dream. Stars don't burn cold.
Well, things are getting colder and they don't realize why that's the case for a while. And, it takes them a couple minutes and they look out and there's this blue star outside, which looks really cool. This was sort of a budget story. It wasn't technically, I know we mentioned this a few weeks ago. It might have actually been on Zenith, our Blake 7 podcast. Check that out.
It's on Zenith. In the episode that will have gone out 5 days before this one that I haven't edited yet, with RG, where we talked about bottle episodes.
Yeah, so this isn't, I think, technically one. Because there's a bunch of location stuff. But this was sort of a budget episode, right? It's both on location in this village that they don't have to do too much work for in terms of sets and stuff like that, and it's in the TARDIS as well. But everything looked really good, I think. Especially when the TARDIS is completely frozen over, that looked great. Maybe it's just because it's not something we've ever seen
Curious to know
before.
how they did that, actually, like behind the scenes, how they actually achieved that frozen over effect.
Yeah, I'm sure it wasn't a different set. I don't think they built a completely new thing.
No.
As far as
Although
I
there is
know.
a production error noted on the wiki that some snow falls off of Amy, and instead of phasing through the Dream Lord like it should, it actually bounces off of him.
Oh, well, that's such a minor thing that you probably wouldn't even notice.
Yeah, well, some people analyze this nonsense frame by frame, so
Yeah,
I wouldn't put it past
do.
them. But yeah, Amy's like, this is obviously a dream because the star is cold and stars aren't cold. And the Doc's like, well, it's a big universe. Anything can happen. It's interesting that the star is blue
apparently
because...
sofas can talk or
yeah,
something, whatever
sofas
he
can
says.
talk. The hottest burning stars are actually blue.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
red
even
stars...
I knew that somehow.
Red stars actually burn cold. Colder. Not cold, but like colder. It's still hot enough to roast you if you come anywhere within like an AU, but anyway.
Yeah, I mean, the sun can kill you, like, on Earth.
Yeah.
So,
Our sun is yellow, by the way. If you haven't heard, in a couple billion years, it'll have expanded to be big enough to engulf the Earth. But by that point, we'll probably all be extinct, so...
yeah, we don't have to deal with it, so it's not a problem.
So... then they cut back to the village, and they're like, wow, this is weird. Why are there so many old people just staring at us? And Rory's like, well, I am the town doctor now, so, I mean, it makes sense. I used to go around and help people.
The doctor's response to that is like, of course this is the dream. You'd never, like, actually make it to being a doctor.
Rory's like, wow.
Because if you don't remember, and I didn't remember until they actually brought it up, but Rory is a nurse, right? Apparently he hasn't, well, I don't know. We don't get whether he's actually tried to become a doctor in the 2 years that passed between 11th hour, or like the 2 year skip in 11th hour.
Mm-hmm.
But like here, the thing is like, when there's not like this hierarchy, right? Of like, first you become a nurse, then you become a doctor. That sometimes does happen. But like when you normally think about it, you hear people like, oh yeah, or, this person went to nursing school, or this person
Went to
is in medical
school.
school, right? It's sort of a one or the other type thing. So, yeah.
Yeah,
it's
I
a
don't
little
know.
strange. Yeah, I don't really care.
I don't know anything about the medical profession except that they charge you a lot of money for not really doing a lot sometimes. Sometimes, not all the time.
But then you make a lot of money for not really doing a lot sometimes. Okay, that's not true.
Doctors do make quite a bit of money, but also have an inordinate amount of debt because of how much schooling they had to go through to get there.
Yeah, but here's the trick to
Here's the trick. Okay, sit down, boys and girls. Here's the trick.
It's a little secret about college loans.
Keon's gonna
and
hit you
debts.
with a life pro tip.
You don't have to pay them. If you don't
The government
pay
will
them,
come after you.
No, a lot of the times they don't. A lot of the times, you hear about people who are like, yeah, I never paid back my college loans. Nothing happened to me. That's not always the case, so you might not want to take that
Yeah,
chance.
don't take
You
that
might not wanna
chance
take the
because
chance,
here's another tip. Here's another tip. College loans are one of the two types of loans that don't go away if you die or declare bankruptcy. You're still in debt to the government for that, even if you're bankrupt. Other loans, they wipe them away if you declare bankruptcy. Not college loans, not student loans. So, just a little fun fact there for you.
Yeah. And here's a disclaimer. I never actually took out any loans, so maybe you don't listen to me.
Yeah, well, yeah. You're making a good case for undermining your own advice there.
Look, I wouldn't. I mean, if I heard someone like if I was preparing to take out a loan and I heard someone just on a random podcast that isn't even about financial stuff, just be like, look, don't pay them back, just wing it. I wouldn't listen to them. So.
Well, there you go.
Make your
boys
own
and
choice.
girls.
This is your choice.
Yeah. Amy has a choice between Rory and the doctor. You have a choice between paying back your student loans or not. So Amy, then the doctor's like, wow, this is so boring. And then Amy's like, a baby's coming. And the doctor's like, what? She's like, yeah, this is my life now.
Just
Don't
pulling your leg. No.
Don't call me boring. And he's like, wow, okay, apologize. I'm sorry. And she's like, yeah. He's like, okay. They go to the old folks' home. They meet Mrs. What was her name? Norbit?
Was it Norbit? Was Doubtfire? No, I'm just kidding.
I'm almost sure it was Norbit.
It started with a P.
Poggets.
Poggets.
I was
right?
close. I had the syllables. She puts a sweater on the doctor and they pass out and they're in the TARDIS and the doctor's like, yeah, we've got about 17 minutes here. And also it seems like time passes in real time in both dreams.
Right,
so.
the doctor mentions this, that he, when they're, it's like when you're actually asleep, right? When they're in the other world, time, when they're in one world, time passes in the other one.
Mm-hmm. Kind of weird and Inception-like, although I've never watched Inception, so don't take my word for that.
Never.
It's okay, because they do a way more Inception-like, or Stephen Moffat rips Inception off way more blatantly later on.
Sure, whatever.
You'll learn this pretty quickly, that every Stephen Moffat Christmas special is just something else.
Just whatever movie's popular at the time, but in a Doctor Who setting.
Kind of. He does A Christmas Carol, and he does The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Oh,
and he
like
does Inception.
from the really capitalizing on that Disney Christmas Carol movie that totally flopped. But no, that's fine, right? You always take inspiration, whether you think you are.
Yeah, is it inspiration or directly ripping off? Well, you'll see when we get there.
Well, what's the difference? And that's a serious question on my part.
That you can answer when we get there. What's the Christmas special coming up? Is it Christmas Carol? Is that Stephen Moffat's first Christmas special?
Don't look at me. I don't know.
I'm going to look it up because I am actually curious about this. Yeah, Christmas Carol. And then the
It's
Doctor,
called
the
The
Widow, the
Christmas
Wardrobe.
Carol.
Yeah, that's what. And then there's the Doctor, the Widow, and the Wardrobe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, I like all that stuff, so. They go out to sort of investigate, I guess, what's going on, and they see a bunch of kids. These are the kids we mentioned before who are on a field trip.
They get vaporized.
Yeah, when they wake up and they're in the TARDIS for a while. And really, I think the village setting, come to think of it, is a little more interesting than the TARDIS one. Because in the TARDIS, they're just freezing, and they're like, oh God, it's so cold. We're dying.
Yeah. Yeah.
They wake back up in the village, and the kids are just piles of sand.
Yeah, they're just dead. They're gone. The Doctor's like, wow, that's
They're
kind of
not coming
weird.
back.
And then he talks with the old people and reveals that they have aliens living inside of them called the Urkodines?
Engadines or something like that.
It began with an E. I remember that much. Oh, the Echnodine.
Right. They've been living inside these.
Yeah, when they show up,
folks.
the Doctor's like, well, the village could be real, I guess, because there's aliens attacking here. He gets separated from Amy and Rory because they run off and he runs off, but they run off in different directions. And he ends up trapped in a butcher shop, and then they start to fall asleep. And he's like, no, I'm going to get attacked by the
Echnodines. The Echnodines, they are. We don't see the full extent of them, I think, because the people that they're living inside sort of open their mouths, and we see an eye stalk type thing come out, and it can also spew. It can spew.
Rory's like, that's disgusting.
Stuff.
I'm like, yep, you're right. That is disgusting, Rory.
It is, yeah. But it's done really well. With the beginning of the season, I sort of railed into the CG a little bit, but I think all this is done pretty well.
The CG is definitely good, in my opinion.
Yeah, the sun looks good. The Echnodines look good. It all looks good.
Yeah.
They run back. They get split up. Amy and Rory, I think, go back to their house.
Right.
And the Echnodines are breaking in, and they sort of just hold themselves in the baby's room.
Future baby's room.
Right.
Meanwhile,
and Rory dies.
Well, no. First, they cut back to the TARDIS, and they're talking on the TARDIS, and this is when they're like, "Well, we're gonna die in 2 minutes," and the Dream Lord's like, "Yeah, well."
I don't think we ever actually really explained, because the Dream Lord's sort of game that he's playing is that one of these things is real and one isn't, so they have to die in one of the worlds to end the dream. But if they pick the wrong world, they'll just die.
Yeah, we explained that.
Huh. Okay.
But before Rory dies, he separates them, and he keeps Amy on the TARDIS, and he sends Rory and the Doctor back to the village. And that's when the Doctor goes zooming over to the house, because Rory carries Amy up the stairs because she's still asleep, because she's still on the TARDIS. The Doctor's driving over there from the butcher store. The Dream Lord taunts him, says some taunting things about how he... Well, so the Doctor's like, they're all my friends, and then the Dream Lord says this really interesting thing that I want to bring up, that he says, really? Because friends are people you keep in touch with the people you travel with never hear from you again.
Yeah, this is really interesting. I kind of want to rewatch this episode that I know I'm not going to, in light of knowing that the Dream Lord is like this darker side of the Doctor.
Right. I mean, even knowing that, because I went into this knowing that it's foreshadowing an element of the overarching plotline for the next season, where next season Stephen Moffat delves into the Doctor's, I guess, self-loathing or self-hatred. And
oh boy.
No spoilers, but Stephen Moffat really dives into this, and this is kind of a foreshadowing of that, where the Dream Lord's like, well, are they really your friends? Because you never keep in contact with them after you leave them. The Dream Lord also says the old man prefers the company of the young because he always takes young companions.
Yeah, that's actually something I want to sort of touch on at the end of this.
So, yeah, we'll talk about that later on because I wrote that down too. And then while he's talking with Amy, she talks to Amy and he's like, look, really, this is your choice right now. Either you got to choose between the Doctor and Rory. And, got to pick which one's real. He, lays it down. She's like, who are you really? And he's like, I don't worry about who I am. Doesn't matter.
One thing I do sort of like about this, and I've ranted about the love triangle type stuff enough, and I think it's obvious enough that I don't like it, but one thing I kind of do like about this is that and this is similar to what I was saying when we watched Flesh and Stone and The Time of Angels, is that this is coming at the middle of the season, and this could easily be like a series finale type thing, season finale type thing, where it's like, well, you have to make this choice between these two people you've been traveling with. But this is all, it's coming at the middle of the season. Things are happening pretty fast.
It's getting actually a little grating to me because it feels like we're running at a maximum speed every single week, and it's like every single week we're up here at max level, and there's no respite.
Cranked it up to 11, and it hasn't been cranked down yet. But this is also the first story that doesn't actually have a crack in it of this season,
or a mention of the cracks
or a
at
mention of it, which kind of I think helps tone it down a little bit.
It's not the first episode where there's no crack, but it's the first story.
Yeah, first story.
Partially because this is an episode really focused around Amy and Rory because of what happens to Rory next week.
Which I already spoiled for myself.
Yeah, but you didn't spoil exactly what happens.
I didn't spoil everything.
And when you see exactly what happens, you can be like, oh, this is interesting. More interesting than just what you spoiled. Of course, I already know. But...
Of course.
But the whole thing, the whole point of this episode is to at least get the viewer to care about Rory in some aspect, whether that's, oh man, I hate Rory, or oh man, I really like Rory, to get them to actually care about this character who's on the show because of what they're going to do to him next week.
Well, also to sort of, I think, establish Rory as someone Amy actually cares about, because if you just take what's happened before this, it doesn't seem as if she really does.
Yeah, Rory makes a lot of good points in the story, again, because she's like... I always choose you, Roy. And he's like, well, you did run off with a strange man on the night before our wedding. And she's like, well, it's a time machine. It's always the night before our wedding. And he's like, but you still ran off with another man.
Well, here's the thing, and we can talk about this now because we're kind of at that point in the story where this Rory dies, the dream Rory.
Yeah.
After cutting the ponytail.
Well, they're both dreams. Spoilers. We haven't spoiled it, but they're both dreams.
Yeah. So... you get you get Amy's really distraught, and she's like, well, I don't care if this is a dream or reality. I don't want to live in this world because Rory's dead. But you kind of get the idea that if this were the Doctor instead of Rory, she'd be saying the same thing.
Yeah. Kind of. But then she decides to commit suicide with the Doctor.
Right.
She's like, I don't want to live in a world without Rory. And the Doctor's like, well, I guess we're just believing that this one's the dream then. So they get in the van and they just drive into the house. Well, they walk out because they try to get the Ecnodeans to kill them, and they're not shooting at them. And the Doctor's like, that's weird. And then they get in the car, just kind of drive it into the house at a very low speed that realistically would probably just maim but not kill you. But it didn't really look like it had any airbags, so maybe it would kill you. I don't know.
You can still die if the airbags go off.
Well, yes.
Pretty easily if the impact's hard enough.
But it did not look like that impact was...
Yeah, kind of like...
quick enough to kill you. Not that I'm an expert on car crashes.
I mean, it looked like they were going 30 max, so...
To me, I was guessing 20.
Yeah, 20 to 30. We also didn't mention Rory cutting off the freaking ponytail.
Yeah, Rory cuts off the ponytail to try to show his love for Amy, and she's like, because at some point, the doctor like slams Rory's like, you're just a guy who thinks that having a ponytail is something that'll make you interesting, or so he says something like that. Or that actually the Dream Lord, actually. But Dream Lord's the doctor.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, I kind of like this moment, and I've railed hard enough into Rory, in past weeks. But he is growing on me, I think, to some extent. I like this moment where he cuts it off because this is his dream world, right? This is his dream hairstyle.
Apparently,
he's the one, recognizing that. And the doctor does this to some extent as well. But Rory, here recognizes this is just my dream. Like, this isn't your dream lifestyle, Amy. So I'm going to give it up.
I mean, what I love about Rory that's still continuing in this story that they've started last week and continues for his whole run is that he doesn't take any shit from the doctor at all. He directly just calls the doctor out on everything. He's like, don't patronize me, doctor. Especially so at the end of this season. But, this week he's like, the doctor's like, well, this is obviously the dream. And Rory's like, yeah, right, doctor. Because Amy wouldn't want a life with me, huh? And she's like, well, I always choose Rory. And the doctor's like, damn, you're right.
Yeah, that is kind of refreshing that there's a companion who does constantly call out the doctor.
And yeah, he cuts off the ponytail. Amy's like, oh, I was starting to like it. And he's like, oh, wait, really? Shoot.
Let me just glue it back on.
The hair grows back out. He gets shot by one of the ecnodeans, and he's like, I'm going to die.
Oh, I'm dying.
Raise our baby. And then they all wake up in the TARDIS, and the Dream Lord's like, well, fair's fair. You chose right. And he turns on the TARDIS power again. And then the doctor starts flipping some controls, and Rory's like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm blowing up the TARDIS. And Amy's like, wait, what? And he's like, yep, this is also a dream. And she's like, how do you know? I mean, we woke up. This is the reality, right? And he's like, nope, we're just going to die now. I'm going to blow us up. And he's like, why? And he does it, and it just works.
And it turns out it wasn't a dream, and he just kills all of them. No.
That's how they end the show.
But no,
just a title card, and everyone died.
So there's this scene at the end. This is the last scene of the story. With the doctor just sort of standing around in the TARDIS, and Amy and Rory walk in. They're sort of laughing. They're like, so let me get this straight. And then they explain what just happened.
They did this in the Blake 7 episode we watched it this week too, where Avon's like, let me get this straight. And Villa's like, yeah, just ask Aurak. And then Aurak explains everything that just happened.
Really? I don't remember that, but...
What? Did you just watch this?
Yeah, but I don't remember that.
Yeah, it's right at the end. Where Avon's like, how did we get out of here? And Villa's like, well, just ask Aurak. And Avon's like, okay, Aurak, what happened? And then he just explains everything.
Huh, yeah, I don't remember that. I remember the stupid joke at the end, but...
You remember the stupid joke, but not Aurak's entire explanation of what happened right before that?
Yeah.
Wow. Weird. Yeah, so the doctor reveals that it was like psychic pollen that got caught in the time rotor and caused them to all apparently have a group hallucination.
Right.
And apparently it drew on the darkness of the doctor to create the Dream Lord, but apparently that would have starved to death if it tried to draw any darkness out of Amy and Rory. The doctor's like, I choose my friends well. And they're like, but the Dream Lord, that was you then? He's like, I don't want to talk about it. Oh, shoot. Shouldn't have admitted that.
Well,
oh, shoot.
The doctor sort of looks, there's a reflective surface that he's looking into. I think it's on the...
on the console.
I don't know, yeah. Was it on the console? I don't remember, actually. It's some sort of reflective surface, and you see the Dream Lord's face. But and the doctor does like this double take, and it's just Matt Smith.
Yeah. And then
it's like, well, that's weird. First it was the Dream Lord, and now I look like English actor Matt Smith. What's going on here? No.
And that's
yeah, that's it. Oh, Amy reveals to Rory why she decided to...
Oh, yeah, because Rory's trying to ask the doctor about... Well, Amy's trying to talk with the doctor, and he's like, no, you need to talk with Rory because the question he's going to ask you right now is going to change his entire life. And Rory's like, oh, yes, right. And he asks her, like, so I don't remember how the other dream ended, but we all woke up here, so, like, what happened? Like, how did you guys... Like, what happened? And she's like, oh, you died, and then I killed myself because I couldn't live without you. He's like, oh. That's how it... Yeah. Then we get the reflective surface thing, and then it ends.
So, overall, I think this was an interesting episode. There are a few more things I want to touch on, but... As far as like my review type thing, I think I don't like the love triangle stuff, and I think that sort of brought the episode down. There are a lot of interesting concepts, right, of like these both being the dream world, and they have to make this choice or whatever, and it's all tied to this love triangle.
Right.
So maybe, could have been better if... I don't know. I mean, there was tension. The tension in this comes out of like this love triangle and making the choice between these two worlds. But I was more interested in the like actual dream world type thing. If that makes sense.
Yeah, there's supposed to be tension in Amy's choice. Like, is she going to choose Rory or is she going to choose the Doctor? And these two worlds are kind of surrogates for Rory and the Doctor. The Dream Lord constructed these two worlds, which are so perfectly Doctorish and perfectly Rory-ish, I guess. I mean, Amy even says this when they're in the TARDIS. She's like, oh, this is so you, isn't it? We're plummeting into a star and the TARDIS is dead and you're going to have to save all of us and you're the only one here who can save us, aren't you?
So wait a minute. Just thought of this right now, but does that mean Rory's ideal reality is one that gets attacked by aliens?
Well, so he dies at the end because he's a hero, because he stops the Echnodine from busting in.
Yeah, that's true.
To kill Amy and the Doctor, so...
Yeah, also, if I remember correctly, it was the Dream Lord sort of setting up these perils for them. He's like, there's going to be a danger in each world, and you're going to have to survive it, or something.
So they encounter the danger in the TARDIS first.
Right. But yeah, the TARDIS stuff does pretty much solely revolve around the danger of it.
Plummeting into the star, which is going to freeze them or whatever.
Yeah, it really actually calls into question the Doctor's psyche if his world is just spiraling towards death with only like 15 minutes left to live.
every day he's just spiraling towards death. You just wake up like, oh boy, time for my daily death spiral. Time for my daily spiral scratch into death.
Oh boy. But yeah, there's a couple other things I want to touch on. I don't know if you had any particular things.
Well, I want to talk about the old man prefers the company of the young. That was the main one I wanted to talk about.
Yep.
Because I thought that was an interesting line for the Dream Lord to just drop in there because, I never really realized this until this point, but it's true that Octon never really takes on an old companion. His oldest friend, like age-wise, is the Brigadier.
Right.
Everybody else he takes into the TARDIS is incredibly young. Like, typically, quite a few of them were 20s, teenagers, right. Or if they weren't teenagers, they were in their 20s. The oldest people who actually traveled in the TARDIS, I guess, would have to be like Ian and Barbara, because they were school teachers.
Yeah, Ian and Barbara, possibly Stephen.
Yeah, Stephen was a pilot, so possibly Stephen, but then other than that, what you get like Romana. I guess Romana
doesn't really count, because she's also a Time Lord.
You have like Nissa and Tegan, who are both extremely young, and Turlo. Turlo's like a schoolboy.
Right. I mean, really the oldest humans were Ian
Ace
and
was
Barbara
a teenager.
And Stephen.
Yeah. Rose was a late teenager.
Right.
Donna, I guess, also would be... Donna
right.
was middle-aged, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Another, tally mark for Donna.
Yeah. Yeah.
As a standout companion, I mean.
Vicky was a teenager.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think we need to go through all of them.
Jamie
they basically
and
all
Ben
were.
and Polly and, yeah. You catch me. Liz Shaw, Joe Grant, Sarah Jane.
K9 was
a
less
robot.
than one. He was the youngest.
Great.
I guess K9 Mark II was maybe just hours old,
Well, K9 Mark II started traveling from zero because he was built in the TARDIS. So.
Yeah, we have a newborn companion on the show.
Well...
No
spoilers.
Unquote, born, unquote.
No spoilers.
I know what's going to happen with Rory. I know more than I've said.
Well, I'm not referring to Rory. We're talking about newborns here. No spoilers.
I don't know. I've spoiled a lot of what's coming in this season, unfortunately, but whatever.
Yeah, it's a real bummer.
But yeah, the Doctor definitely, he mentions, I think in this episode, that he's 907.
Yeah.
And... yeah, this really, it's almost off-putting when you think about it, really, because this is this really old guy who's like, he looks extremely young, he's traveling around with these young people, and he's like, yeah, going off, doing things with them.
I was just thinking about all those weebs who are like, oh man, this is my anime waifu, and she looks like 12 years old. He's like, but it's a 500-year-old dragon, so it's okay, right? It's like, no, but she still looks 12 years old, my friend. It's like the British Doctor Who version of that. This dude's 907, but he looks like, what, English actor Matt Smith, who's
25.
25. And like, that was something that was mentioned by Stephen Moffat in The Doctor Dances when they're using dancing as a metaphor for sex. When Rose is all like, oh,
wow,
you want to dance
deep.
with me? And he was all like, I'm like 900 years old. You can guess that I've danced quite a bit in my time. If you remember that. If I was Rose, I'd be like, man, you're 900 and you've been, yeah, well, you know what? That's just, oh, thanks.
I don't remember Rose's reaction to that, but whatever. Pretty sure it was just like, yeah, whatever. But yeah, here that's also the thing is that, this love triangle, and then I'm glad you actually brought up Rose and the Ninth Doctor, because, like, that was season 1 at least, it was sort of a romance type thing that actually kind of worked for me, Rose and the Ninth Doctor, because of how it was built up over 13 episodes.
Still kind of awkward that the Doctor just steals Rose from Mickey.
And also because it was gradual and it was sort of under the radar. It wasn't exactly, like, I guess, explicit as what's going on here, but hey, whatever.
Well, they are, to an extent, kind of sexualizing Amy much more than they have any previous companions since kind of Leela, I guess, with that very skimpy outfit they put her in and that catsuit they put Zoe in.
Well, don't forget Perry.
Oh, right, and Perry. Perry was introduced in a bikini.
Really, all the female companions of that era, except maybe Ace. Even Ace as well, with that dropped like subplot with Sablon Glitz and stuff like that.
Well, yeah, I don't really think they ever sexualized Mel that much.
Yeah, I don't remember in terms of Mel.
But they are sexualizing Amy more so than the reboot companions. She's a kissogram. She like directly comes onto the Doctor. And
yeah, you're right.
What was that? The one right before Time of Angels? I'm forgetting which one it is. No, it was at the end of Flesh and Stone.
Yeah.
Where she's like, yeah, we have one night together. And he's like, yeah. And she's like, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about more. And he's like, no.
Yeah, overall, look, if I was in charge of this show, none of this stuff would have made it to the screen. But I'm not. Oh, I wanted to also mention, I forget what they use it for, but there's this time flow analog style device in this.
They use it as a generator for the TARDIS to turn on the screen to look outside to see the star.
It has a corkscrew. The top of it is just a corkscrew just stuck in.
Yeah, they give Roy the job of winding up this generator. There was one note here that I wanted to talk about, but I don't remember the context. I wrote self-harm, and I only remember that someone in the story mentioned, like, oh man, I would like self-harm if I was in your life or something like that. And I don't remember exactly, and I wish I'd made a more detailed note about it.
Yeah, I think I remember that.
Just thought that was, I don't know, partially tasteless in my opinion, but anyway.
Wasn't it Rory being like, yeah, that guy was self-harming himself and I was the one who stopped him or something like that? I don't remember.
Possibly that was it. That was it. I was okay with it. I really should have taken a more detailed note on this because it was something I wanted to mention, but I only wrote down the word self-harm and not where it appeared.
Nice.
That one was on me.
Anyway, the preview reveals that the Silurians are back.
Yeah. The Silurians are back. I've taken to not watching the previews anymore, so this is on you.
It looked cool. I mean, it starts off with this unseen, the preview that is, starts off with like, there's this unseen force dragging people underground, and you're like, who could it be? But then there's a Silurian in the preview.
I don't remember this story much, next week's story.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I've wanted the Silurians back for a long time.
Yeah, we have next week's story, and then we have Vincent and the Doctor, which is one of the greatest episodes of Doctor Who ever made. And then we have The Lodger, which I remember, and then we have the Big Bang, the Pandorica Opens, which I remember. But next week's I don't remember at all, so
we'll get there.
We'll find out what happens next week. I don't have anything else to say on this story.
Yep, that's it for me.
No emails, so that leads us into, if you would like to email us and put a nice email in our inbox, you can reach us at thedoctor@decorativevegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on the Dream Lord. You can find us on YouTube at Trust Your Doctor. You can find us on Apple Podcasts and Google Play at Trust Your Doctor. You find us on YouTube at Decorative Vegetable. Be sure to leave a rating if you like the show.
Check us out on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor. Like us on Facebook. Also check us out on Twitter at TYD Podcast and follow us on Twitter. And next time we're watching Hungry Earth and Cold Blood. But until then, the end.